and welcome to this Training and Coaching with WKO program overview. My name is Tim Cusick, and I will be taking you through all 8 lessons of this Training and Coaching with WKO education series. Most of you know me as the Training Peaks WKO product leader, but I'm also a master coach at Velocious Endurance Coaching, where I work with numerous professional athletes, and have the luxury of coaching both world champions and Olympians. That being said, it doesn't make me an expert at this. My own personal belief is that all coaches should really learn, educate, and teach themselves how to coach, how to train, how to use data analytics. To me, it's really important that during educational programs, you understand that this education program power training process is really my opinion, and I think everybody should work to form their own. If you're new to power training, I would highly recommend you hire a coach. It can really shorten the learning curve for you. It's kind of funny, I notice a lot of athletes getting into power training have it backwards. They suggest I'm going to train with power for a couple of years and then hire a coach. The reality is you'll save a lot of trial and error learning if you hire the coach first, a knowledgeable coach, and have somebody take you through the process. You'll really speed up the learning curve. One of the things that is really important in your learning journey here is I think you should work to remove the bias. One of the biggest challenges of self-coached athletes and coaches as a whole is that we tend to bring our own preconceived notions to our opinions and strategies. Data really helps us remove that bias. I also think as a coach or a self-coach athlete, you should always be looking to learn. Knowledge is power. It really is. The more you learn, the smarter you get at this, the better and more effective coaching you'll be able to give your athletes or give yourself. And in the end of the day, I think you need to take all of your knowledge and form a process. And what I'm going to do here is give you the process of training and coaching with WKO. So it's kind of my process. I'm not going to go too deep. I'm going to try to give everybody a good overview, but really my goal is to not have you adopt my process, but maybe use it to understand a process that or form your own process that works for you. This program will be broken into 8 sessions, this overview which we're currently doing. There's 6 lessons which are really going to be the steps of coaching and training with WKO. Each session should be somewhere between 8 and 20 minutes long and will be recorded and shared on our Quick Start Guide webpage, which will be linked everywhere that we post it. And then finally, I'll end with a little summary of 3 common mistakes of training with data. There are some pitfalls of training with data that I see people consistently make. I'll be able to share that with everybody. Okay, let's start out with the overview session here. So just an overview, why train with power? Let's just talk about some of the things that power really gives you a leverageable edge. I think, you always used to see, hey, power compared to heart rate training or power compared to perceived exertion. And when you compare those, really, power is measuring the work you've done. Heart rate and perceived exertion are kind of the work you did. They were both trailing indicators. I went hard, and then eventually my heart rate went up, and eventually the pain scale went up, right? So they're trailing indicators. Power gives you the actual work you're doing on the bike. And what does that allow you to do? Well, if I was to say the top thing it does, it begins the journey of individualizing your training. No 2 humans are alike, nor should their training be alike. The reality is power allows us to use, quantified data to understand the athletic, uniqueness, the athlete uniqueness, and be able to implement that for improved training success. Second, specificity of training. Since we can quantify everything, we can be highly specific, whether it's our targeting, our training formats, our training modality, or our tracking. We can do so in a highly specific fashion. Third, we can apply the progression principle. The progression principle allows us to ensure, because we can quantify training again, that we're properly progressing load. One of the key mistakes I see people make consistently in training strategies is there isn't the right progression and they're not measuring it. Even if they are measuring it, they're not hitting it correctly. So by quantifying training, we can ensure appropriate progression in training load. So when we talk about the quantifying of these things, you're really talking about you can quantify the work, how much training, how much work, how much effort am I doing. You can, though, with that information, though, you can also quantify the progress, meaning, am I getting faster? Am I moving towards my goal? Faster isn't always the goal. You might want to be more resistant to fatigue. You might want to have more stamina. You might want to have more sprint, but whatever that is, if we can quantify it, we can understand progression. And then finally, we'll know if we achieved our training results. A training result and a performance result aren't always the same. You might be training to increase your threshold to 300 watts, but not win your target goal, but have increased your threshold to 300 watts. So when we start talking about training with power, we can understand how much training that we're doing and how we're inputting that. And then finally, and something I'm going to touch on in a couple of slides, analytics as decision support. People ask me, why should I use an analytics software like WKO? Well, the reality is we want to use that analytics software to help us make decisions. So, analytics aren't the solution. It's kind of like science, is just knowledge. Analytics is knowledge, but why are we using them? To help us make decisions, which I'm going to get into. Why do analytics matter? Why would I want to use WKO or some type of, or Training Peaks Premium or some type of analytics system? I think this slide, and I show it a lot in different presentations, really drives the boat, right? Because analytics, when I say analytics, I'm talking about training analytics, our power data analytics. It allows us to use the exercising athlete to better understand their unique physiology. And then once we understand their unique physiology, we can use that to improve training results via individualization and specificity. So if I understand the athlete because I see how they make power, it gives me insight into their muscular metabolic capability. It gives me insight into their neuromuscular capability. It gives me insight into their muscular, resistance to fatigue. All of those things, it really allows me to design individual and specific training to maximize that athlete's result. And it's a cycle. The more we train those athletes, the more we get data, the more we can use analytics to and understand their physiology to improve our training through individualization and specificity. It's not like a one-time deal. It's an ongoing cycle of improvement. What do data analytics really do? Well, think about coaching, or if you're self-coaching again, you're making a lot of decisions, right? I'm deciding, do I need more threshold work? Do I need more sprint work? Do I need more anaerobic ability? Do I, whatever those decisions are, data analytics don't supply a solution. There is no perfect world. It's no, wow, there's the data and the data says I should do absolutely this. It doesn't work that way. But the more data, the more quality data you have, particularly, and the more you have analytics, meaning I can utilize that data in a way, you increase the odds of success. And that's what data analytics is. People look at data analytics and tend to say to me, hey, Tim, that's kind of sciencey and it's the science of data. Not really. It's the science of decision making, right? For me in my coaching role, analytics aren't the end all. It is an art and a science. But I use the science to increase the odds of my art being successful. I have years of knowledge. You are out there gaining knowledge now. It's why you're watching my program. But the reality is, that's what analytics do. The better you learn how to use analytics, the better you will increase the odds of success in your training or your athlete's training. So it's not science of data, it's science of decision making. Throughout this program, I'm going to take you through what I call 3 phases and 5 steps. Now, 3 phases really is this idea of the first 3, right? You have test, diagnose, and plan. Those are the really 3 phases, the intellectual side of it, and where you're using data analytics to create and I guess you would call it, you're creating the plan, right? You're creating this umbrella, the solution, the strategy. That's the word I'm looking for. And then really that's 5 steps, because once you create that strategy, you have to execute and monitor it, right? So the reality is it's 3 phases, 5 steps. The 5 steps are what I'm going to take you through in future videos, lessons 1 through 6. I break one down into 2 different lessons just to keep the time right. But basically, we're going to, step 1 is testing, step 2 is diagnose, step 3 is plan. Then we talk about, that's our strategy, right? We use those 3 to create our training strategy. Then step 4 is execute, and step 5 is monitor. So those 5 steps are going to be what the next series of 6 lessons will teach us. And they have particular goals of each step, as you can see in the screen. In testing, we want to establish your power duration curve model. And I'm going to show you a testing protocol, and then in the diagnosis phase, I'm actually going to show you how to use, now that we have a clean power duration model and metrics, how to use those model and metrics to diagnose. That will lead to an understanding of your specific needs as an athlete and having, what your capabilities are. And that will lead us to a data-driven plan. We're going to use that data to create the right strategy. I see a lot of people training hard, but they might not be training the right things in the right direction. Then once we get our strategy, we begin to start tactical. We're going to build some smart workouts and work on continual improvement. The process will be, each lesson will focus on this. And like I said, each lesson is going to be somewhere between 8 and 20 minutes. I'm going to try to keep these more short and compact for everybody. And it will be a general process. And again, don't forget, it's an overview of my process, which is my opinion. Don't take my opinion as fact. Form your own process. That completes the overview. The next session will be power duration curve testing, where I will show you my protocols of both structured and unstructured testing to establish the power duration model. Thank you.